So, everyone in mobile says that you have to test and iterate in order to improve your campaign performance. There's lots of materials around testing creatives. But when I was starting my recent blog post on creative iterations, I expected I will summarize best practices at AppAgent and will Google for some tips and tricks by other experts. But I realized there's almost nothing online. So I pinged Facebook and Google. Do you have some materials? Do you have some frameworks? And listen, nothing. So then I asked Louis, how about it to invite some smart people on this event and ask them how they approach creative iterations so we can give you some practical tips and tricks how to develop creatives for a brand new app or game and also for a matured product. So we have here Yuri Bolotkin from Starberry Games, Marička Baluk from ZenJob, and Radostina Žeková from Voodoo. And we will do a quick round of introductions, but a bit differently, because I would like to ask them 3 questions. First, how they started in mobile. Second, what's their marketing superpower? And third, which question they would like to get answered by their fellow colleagues today on stage. So, Yuri, can we start with you?
Yeah, of course. Hello. Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course. Thank you. So, how I started in mobile, I was looking for a job and then got introduced to this new company, Fiber, and Fiber was generous enough to move me here to Berlin. That's how I introduced. It was a pretty trivial story. My previous background, I was doing web advertising, and then I moved to mobile. It's pretty much a smooth transition for me.
Superpower?
Superpower. I like hacking stuff. I don't wait for my manager to approve the project, then we get a task force, then we lay out the plan. I just go and hack stuff, and that's how I iterate quicker without waiting for the whole thing to start rolling. And then failing quick.
I've been ready for your question.
And the question to my fellows, I would like to have an insight on how you decide where to start iterating. Which part of the creative you want to start dissecting and iterating on?
Excellent, thanks a lot. This is also a question I'm curious about. So Marička, over to you.
Hi everyone. Yeah, I ended up in mobile actually through web as well, but in web I ended up completely accidentally. I majored in literature and linguistics, and at one point in my master's year, one company needed someone who would write English content. And because we don't have native speakers of English in Ukraine back home too much in the cities, I was just like somehow sucked into SEO, content writing, and here I am today.
Not very straightforward, isn't it?
Yeah. Superpower. Well, my former team here would say that it's the technical setup. They think I understand everything about how things work and track and report and everything else.
Is that true? Okay.
I create an impression. That's one good thing. But I think the superpower I strive towards is asking the right questions and making people that I work with think a bit outside the box and challenge the ideas that we think are already the general truth. And the question for everyone here, and actually, if you have the answer, find me after the panel, would be: how do you keep track of the whole mass of all the learnings, all the results that you produce through all these iterations, new concepts across channels, across campaigns, and how do you share these learnings with the creative team? How does that basically enrich you rather than create the chaos around? I would really love to know that.
That's a good one. And I would like to ask you for help with questions if you're asking good questions. So be my buddy today. And Radostina,
yeah,
your
hi.
journey.
Yeah, actually it's funny because we have a match. I also was working in SEO back in the day. And then I started in mobile with Uplift in 2016. And since then I've been in different companies, like gay dating app called Romeo, Jam City, and now I'm working at Voodoo, running a UA in gaming. And I think, like, I don't know if that's superpower, but like something I really love and keeps me going is experimenting. I like testing. I always have some observed, like, really weird tests going on. Sometimes it's even against all logic, but I find it, I have a hypothesis behind it, and I like to build a strategy on top of it. And one question that I'm interested is like, what do you think is the best way to test creatives? Do you have any different approach when you test new concepts opposed to iterations? I'm just like interested in finding what is your testing protocol.
Okay, so testing process is the question.
Yeah, like what is the best testing protocol to follow? Or is there any best actually testing protocol?
Cool, amazing, thanks a lot. I'm Peter, founder of AppAgent. We are a strategic and creative marketing agency that helps companies to grow their user base and revenues. We are offering growth program and creative services to businesses such as Supercell, Square Enix, or Small Giant Games. My superpower is ability to connect the dots. I'm the guy who is looking for connection between different things and then nudging different parts of our company to get things done. And let's jump into the part one, where we would like to tackle over iterative process. Then we have part two, just to tease you a bit, and there we will cover what iterations work the best, which will hopefully answer Yuri's question. And then we would like to ask you some questions as well. So get ready, I will come to you with the microphone between these two sections. So the first question for all of you, how do you approach iterations for a brand new app or game compared to a product that's out on the market for, let's say, 12 months? Is there any difference in the way how you structure new and iterations, new creatives and iterations in terms of volume or the general like development of creatives? How do you approach it? Who wants to start?
I can start.
We can't say ladies first. Too many.
Yeah, well, definitely. I think when you have a new product, it's the time actually when you have the chance to test as many new ideas and different ones as possible. And most likely, you will start your testing on Facebook, and there is this honeymoon period where you tend to have lower acquisition costs. So I think it's really good to take advantage of this period and like try to really test different themes, and then once you like gain a lot of knowledge or like some idea of what works, you can move into iteration part.
So let's say that you are really starting from scratch. Do you develop like all the possible ideas, really like from all possible buckets and creative directions, or you define the theme first, let's say themes, and then you explore different themes, let's say 4 or 5 on the beginning, and then only you move to focusing on specific concepts?
Well, maybe it's a good idea to like do a little bit of research, definitely compare what the benchmark is doing, do a brainstorm, and try to narrow your ideas, because if you go too broad, then it might end up like just wasting resources and time into, and not even being possible to test all your ideas. So I think it's very important to have some hypothesis on what is the product, what are the main selling points, and what is the motivation of the users that most likely will have to use your app.
Yeah. A question to Yuri, maybe. If you are launching the new creative development, is it the creative people who do this at your company, or marketers, or both together? How you are approaching this process as a teamwork or more like individual responsibility at your company?
Yeah, we're quite a small and lean team, so everything starts from the marketing so far. Yeah, we initialized the big why thing. Why we do this, why users want to see our ads, why do they want to play our game. And these ideas we kind of translate to the marketing, to the creative team. So we condense whys into actionable things like, oh, okay, users want to relax in our game. Okay, show us some relaxation. Oh, users want to zone out. Oh, show us that. What is this associations with relaxation in the game? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, let's go through all of this and create a video for each of the concepts.
So you define the motivators first, and then based on the motivators, the brief to the creative team is figure out how to visualize this. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. The creative team They like ideate, like floating around and throwing like crazy ideas at the wall. At the same time, I would like to guide this process. And as Simon Sinek said, like, you need to start with why. So we start with why, then it's easier to understand why are we in this point of the time, what are we going to show, why it doesn't work. We can always come back and reiterate.
Mm-hmm. At which point you start iterating? On the beginning, you have to start with, of course, brand new concepts. How quickly you move to iterations? Let's say in weeks after the launch.
Yeah, it's a very tempting. So as soon as we start something and we see the results, we straight away want to tweak the best creative. That's kind of a natural process. It's hard to keep the balance of ideating new things and iterating on what we just tested. So we are very quickly fall into this trap of iterating whatever we just tested. So we keep on iterating on things that we just tested, that are live now, and kind of lock ourselves from creating new ideas, stepping back and generating fresh idea. It's a bit scary because fresh idea has lower chance of success rather than thing that you iterate on.
Maric, how is it for you and your team? Do you have also the same issue at ZenJob, that you are rather iterating than taking a risk with new concepts?
So I think actually across my experience currently, which we are only starting to build that process, or in my past experiences or companies that I worked with on the consulting basis, it's always good to keep that ratio of things that have been performing and then add in a couple of iterations on top of things that are of the good ads, and then add some concept that is like, I don't know, depending, of course, on the volume, once a week or every other week or more frequently if you can afford, of something completely new. Because, yes, iterations will have a better chance to succeed. And then, of course, those concepts, the new ones you need in order to make sure that you're not stuck with one creative that it basically is tied to your performance. But I think, of course, it's very difficult to do that at the start. So I think stabilizing things a bit first and understanding what works better on the basically secondary metrics like CTR and installs is good, and but then also seeing them through towards the ROI and understanding what actually has better signals for you in the long run. I would definitely wait out a little bit initially.
Okay, so let's say that we are 12 months in, the product is out for a year. What would be your recommendation to the audience when it comes to the ratio between investment into new concepts and iterations?
I would ask, do you have things that are working for you now? Mm-hmm. Because I think that's something that we assume that, yeah, for the new product we need to come up with new concepts. Actually, probably we always need to come back to coming up to new concepts. But sometimes we also, I know that with very mature products, I would hit the point where everything's sort of declining and nothing is working so well. So you have to basically scratch all your learnings. And I think in that case, it's almost like starting the process from the start. But I think overall, spending at least like 50–60% on the stable creatives, if you have them, it would be a good idea. The rest would be on testing. But it also depends, what's your ROI? What's your ROI target? How efficient do you need to be? Do you need to be really cautious and have only like 10–15% of your budget on much more radical tests? Or do you actually have some room in order to test more and learn faster? I think that's another thing. We don't want to exhaust ourselves before we actually get some learnings and find out what's our new best, as we like to call them, holy grail.
Rado, could you reveal how's the ratio at Voodoo?
Yeah, well, at Voodoo we produce loads of creatives. We believe that this is the main driving force for UA.
How many a week?
Many. It could be triple, like 3-digit.
For a single game?
Yeah. So we
a week.
We are very fast. Like we are very fast.
That's interesting.
Is that across all channels or?
Yeah. exactly, across all channels. So we try to be like super fast, like get learnings very fast, and then just move faster if it's possible. And we like Voodoo has the capacity to produce that many creatives and test them. So it would really depend on the product, the size of the company, the size of the team. If you're a small team, of course, you won't be able to deliver that much volume. I do think that what Mariska said is it's true that sometimes you exhaust yourself with too many iterations or without really being able to explore new concepts, or the other way around. So I think it's useful in that case to rotate the team, to have some fresh eyes and really scratch everything, just restart and start from the beginning. This helps.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm curious now, with so many creatives produced, how many of those are distinct, separate concepts?
Unique
and
concepts, I wanted to ask the same.
Yeah.
And
That's
how many
that's
are like iterations or different angles?
Yeah, well, in that case, like the majority is iterations, because as what you already both mentioned, this is not naturally what happens as that is easier to do. Just iterate on something that's working, and it's faster to produce as well. So the ratio of iteration is higher, yeah, than the new concept.
Cool, thanks a lot. And we have touched the creative performance and creative fatigue. So maybe to answer one of your questions, what's your creative testing process and what are the KPIs? Is it the obvious IPM, or is it more the spend you can put behind the creative? Anything else? How do you decide which creative is the winner or top performer compared to the losers? What's your methodology?
Megan? Okay. I somehow always work on very efficiency-driven projects. So our ultimate goal would be always ROI, which, you know, one of the key things is to make sure that you are able to track that to the creative level and evaluate that properly.
And is it a predictive ROI,
Yes.
some forecast,
Yes.
or ROI on day X?
Depending, of course, on that would depend quite a bit on your product and when you can get those learnings. But normally, it is the expected predicted ROI that then is adjusted towards the fact, and sort of that's the number that's always learning based on your user behaviors and improving. And then, of course, it's good to compare those two. But I think, especially if you are testing a bunch of different visual iterations of the same concept, even looking at the CTR would be good enough. You know, like look at those initial signals, because I think if you have a lot of ideas at hand and you don't really know in which direction you can go, you have a couple of segments of users, or you have a couple of USPs that you can, or like use cases that you can center around. That's a lot of testing that you need to get done in order to get to maybe that last idea is your good one. So I would look at those preliminary KPIs as well that normally we try not to look at so much, like having efficiency in mind, but like even those can be really good signals at the start.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. And maybe one for you, Rado. Do you tag some elements of the ad, such as the gameplay or, I don't know, opening sequence, heroes, to understand which elements are driving the performance?
Yeah, well, we try to do some tagging on a higher level, such as like a fail or success, if it's like a misleading ad or it's like a real gameplay. So we do follow that, and this really helps to kind of come up with best practices that we after that can apply to the other games that we have. Also music, what kind of music, like, because one trend that I've been observing a lot recently is the use of music and sound and voiceover that really helps to lower the CPI.
Really?
Yeah.
There's like so many quotes that
Actually,
you
yes.
shouldn't care at all about sound in ads and design for sound off.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well, and I was very skeptical about it. But like, recently I've been changing my mind about this, because looking into iterations just on with sound, like changing or playing with the sound, having good results. I started thinking that maybe like more users are changing their user behavior, coming from the networks like TikTok.
Yeah, TikTok or Stories, Reels.
Or Stories. Reels is a placement that Facebook currently is trying to grow and have more inventory there. So they have sound on, and this is something to look for.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great insight. Thanks for that. And Yuri, how about you? You were at Vuga, Popcorn, now at Starberry. This advanced analysis and tagging of elements, was it something that you did in the past? Does it even make sense? It's quite interesting to hear from Rado that they are tagging like high-level stuff, not like the actual design elements, but rather, let's say, if it's a fail or success type of that, which is interesting. How is it for you?
Yeah, we try to tackle it. There are enterprise solutions out there, right? However, we can do it in Excel, and in my current job, I was just tagging the tags. So I was just tagging keywords in a particular creative, especially if it's a winning one. But then we have this massive table, and then we're like, okay, what shall we do? How we parse these tags, how we cross-reference the performance versus the frequency of those tags appearing. So we kind of have a foundation, but there is an actual workflow that we executed. I also I'm not buying this enterprise solution, as it's kind of the price versus the return is kind of doubtful. So I think building something yourself, that's what can make a difference. Everyone have a different process. I'm just simply tagging what I'm seeing in the video, but you can do it differently. When we show a winning creative to the team, everyone will have an opposite opinion. What is the driving element in the creative? Yeah. So then we need to take in all of these opinions and actually test of every of these opinions. So this should all potentially go as a keyword from every person in the team into the tagging, and then you throw it into a magic machine. So there is no silver bullet yet.
I can add my story. About 2 years ago, we worked for Glue Mobile for Design Home, and we analyzed creative performance together with them, and we always said, hey, there's a pattern, like if you do like this and that, it will bring the uplift. So we created a batch of new creatives following this insight, and almost in all cases, it didn't work out. So it's about these opinions and understanding what's going on. It's very difficult and very tricky, because it's not always what you would say is the reason why. Okay, so do we have any question from the audience now? Not really? Okay, so let's move to the part 2, to what actually works. So, simple question, what kind of iterations typically work for you? Yuri?
Shall I
want to start?
Yeah, I think, it really differs by product. However, the pattern I see is there are certain things you can change, like gameplay. You change the elements in the gameplay, or you change the speed of the gameplay, or if a certain you change the elements in the gameplay, but then you need to think which elements do you want to change. If it's a board game, do you want to replace all of the elements, or do you want to make all elements look the same? Is it about the pattern? So I'm thinking more about visual response and less about technical aspects, like is it sound on or off, is it aspect ratio square or horizontal. That kind of comes after. The first is what I see, especially what I see in the first 3-5 seconds. That's kind of the thing. And again, it's useful to pick the brain of several people in the team. So I may think this is an opening, oh, we show the character, and another person would say, yes, we show the character, but there is a moving car behind this character, so actually maybe the car should be replaced.
Marichka?
Well, I'm not in the gaming vertical.
That's why we have you here. That's fine.
Yeah, and so I think my learnings are slightly different. Currently, and also in my previous experiences, I see that the most straightforward creatives work. I don't know, maybe that's makes our job a little bit more boring or actually more interesting because we have to find new angles to communicate that USP, that one benefit for the user as in as many different ways as possible. But for instance, right now, one of my biggest audiences is students who can work with us and in like shifts very flexibly and earn and basically earn their earn money. And one of the most winning concepts is copy on a dark background, of course. And another thing that really works consistently and improves the performance everywhere where we add it is the amount that you can earn in a shift. You put the number there, it's gonna work. So basically, something as simple as that. Normally, I think also for, I was quite hands-on on UACs for a while, until quite recently, and what I saw was that on UACs, an explainer with a really good hook initially, either around the statistics or a question that is provoking works. On paid social, a story that is as far from demo of your product as possible will work more. So.
Is here someone from the travel industry? Nope, so I can share some insight when we worked for kiwi.com. When we used the price of the flight ticket, it performed amazingly well. If you use the same visual without the price, absolutely not working.
I can confirm from my travel experience as well. And if you have a deal, even if that deal is worse than an average price.
Whatever, there's a number.
You cross the number especially and put another number on top and magic happens.
Exactly. Rado, how about you and your experience? What usually works the best?
Yeah, actually, I could confirm this black background and like dark background really works as well on gaming. For some of the titles I've been managing, I already shared the sound music. I think this works well. VoiceOver, try it, test it, and you might be surprised. Working around text works pretty well. Actually, people do read what you
like headlines?
Yeah, headlines are trying to go a bit more creative around asking question or like trying to engage the user with text. This is something that works. Also try to be provocative or engage the users. Like one example with an ad that we have, or some ads that we have very successful on Facebook are questioning your IQ if you can solve it, but then we have a very obvious spelling mistake. And people love to comment on that.
So you mean like you intentionally do a grammar mistake to improve the performance?
We all like to be smart, you know.
Well, it is an intentional.
Maybe it stops you from scrolling because it's something strange, and that little moment hooks you.
It bugs you. Yeah. You need to comment. Obviously, that's not right. So you have to tell them that they're not doing
engagement.
Yeah, and this works. We know that there is a mistake, but we intentionally do not correct that because we see people are commenting, they're engaging, they're tagging other people, they're sharing. It's crazy, like really huge engagement on the social media for that.
My 2 cents that are going back to what you mentioned about the opening sequence. Do test the order of messages, the sequence of the parts of the ad, and don't care at all about if it makes sense or not. You might realize that something that's original in the middle of the ad and put in the first 5 seconds is really working much better, no matter that the rest of the ad is just a nonsense. So just shuffle the order of scenes. It takes no time, it's just editing, and you can really figure out what messaging works the best, and then you can easily use that key message in the first impression frame on the store, because that typically is the same, that it engages people to install the app. Is there something that you would say would be surprising in terms of performance that it's not working? People are saying, like, do this or do that, and you learned the hard way that it's not going to work.
Sometimes, I mean, normally it was very trendy, like hopping on these trends on social media, and this is a little bit of a hit or miss from my experience. With Squid Games, it was everywhere, so everyone was like trying and testing it, and like we tested it on the games that I was working on, and it was complete failure. So not always like hopping on every trend. Yeah, just pick the ones that make sense.
Marička, anything on your mind?
Well, I think one consistent trend that I see all the time is that an ugly MVP that you come up with initially or copy from a competitor that looks completely horrendous works really well, and then you try to improve it and it doesn't. And like we had once at Blinkist where I worked before, we had this concept that we were calling an emo one, because it was like a black and white image in the background with like basically a running text. It was like looking like it was a visual towards the music video created by a 13-year-old, and that was our best performer for such a long time, and no matter how we tried to improve it, it didn't work.
So that's a nice insight for the very end. Hire 13-year-old creators, let them do ugly creatives, and it will be the best. So thanks a lot for joining me on the stage, and if you want to discuss creatives more today, I'm running a roundtable at 2 p.m., so feel free to join me. And thank you, Yuri, Marička, and Rado, it was amazing with you.